So hello guys, welcome to episode 14 of our Manor Racing save. Now if you didn't watch the last episode, I reckon that's possibly the best episode on this series today. We're getting into his groove now. Go back and watch that and I'll just show you what happened, because season results wise, it was Lewis Hamilton winning the Grand Prix, George Russell in P2, Max Verstappen P3. These Mercedes are putting up a real fight going into the last three races on both championship fronts, because Max Verstappen is only leading by 13 points from Lewis Hamilton. Could Lewis Hamilton get that Drivers' Championship? Let me know down in the comments who's going to win it. Constructors standings wise, Red Bull have a bit more of a buffer in that respect, but still it's not unfathomable that they could lose this Constructors fight. We're down in P7, confident of actually catching Alpine a little bit now in P6, and we're in P12 individually. As a driver, level on points with Esteban Ocon. Ollie Caldwell yet to get off the mark so far this season. R&D wise, we'll just have a little check on that. We're still above Haas. We're just behind Ferrari, which is who we were battling with in the last episode. But you will notice there are some regulation changes coming, and it's going to be to the chassis and durability. So we're going to try and preserve some of the upgrades. We've already started, as you can see, preserving a few. So that's just a little side note on what's happening in the sort of external circumstances. But this weekend we go to Mexico, another circuit which I particularly like. I'm looking forward to hopefully getting another result. I'll see you at the results of qualifying, and then we'll get into the Grand Prix.
Back in the 60s, Mexico City would host the season-ending race, a party of motor racing. Well, we might not host the finale now, but Mexico hosts a party nonetheless. So welcome to the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez for the Mexico City Grand Prix. 17 corners then at the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, 10 to the right and 7 to the left. And all of them will have to be tackled in difficult wet conditions here today. No DRS assistance either, at least not for the start of the race. The best overtaking opportunities will still be down into turn 1 or shortly afterwards into turn 4. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. George Russell will begin today's event in pole position, and Lewis Hamilton completes the front row. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Perez, Norris, Sainz, Verstappen, Oscar Piastri, Fernando Alonso, Stroll, Lewis, Gasly, Tsunoda, Joe, Albon, Hulkenberg, Leclerc, Ocon, Sargent, Magnussen, De Vries, Ollie Caldwell, and Valtteri Bottas begins the race from the back of the grid. With preparations almost complete, let's head down to the track.
Right guys, not the perfect qualifying session. We did leave a little bit of time on the table, probably not too much, maybe a couple of positions, but we were happy overall. What we're not happy with is the rain that you can see in front of you, and if we have a look at the strategy, it is going to be full wet tyres. It might switch to intermediates at the end. I'm hoping that we're going to be able to make these wet tyres last, but it could be very, very difficult. It's all going to be about saving the tyres, making sure they're in a decent window, but let's see what we can do here from P10 in the points, starting in the points. Let's see if we can finish in them. Let's get to 5 red lights for the Mexican Grand Prix. So here we go then, 5 red lights for the Mexican Grand Prix in the rain here. What can we do? And it's a long hole, but we are away, and it is George Russell who leads us away on pole position from Lewis Hamilton. Checo Perez straight away up to P2, but we are going to ride on board with us at the start of this Grand Prix, because straight away we are looking at the inside line going into turn 1. We've lost a couple of positions to Stroll and Alonso, but we're taking it easy. We don't want anything daft into turn 1, as we see it's 3 wide in front of us. Piastri, Stroll and Alonso, everyone on the full wet tyres. We come round this first chicane, there's a little bit of bumping of tyres between the two Aston Martin drivers, and we think, I'll tell you something, we'll have a little run up the inside, and we've gone through the middle of 2 cars there, through the middle of Stroll and Piastri, and now into this next left-hander. We're wary on our left-hand side of the Aston Martin. We get a decent turn in there on the back of Alonso, and Stroll and Piastri still fighting in behind. It's still George Russell leading, but now Lando Norris is in P2 from Checo Perez. Then comes Hamilton, Sainz, Verstappen, Alonso. Piastri and Stroll are still going side by side, but there's not a lot of grip out here as we take our first little venture through these S's, getting used to the conditions on lap 1 here. Before we get comfortable, it's going to take us a little bit of time. But coming towards the end of lap 1, Russell leaves. We are in P8. Join us back on lap 5. George Russell is still leading, but we are holding on to the back of the Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso. And what we're also managing to do is just keep extending the gap to Piastri and Stroll. We're getting some messages on the radio that the rain is lightening up, although it really doesn't look like it. If we switch to the cockpit cam, my word, the visibility is not easy at this moment in time, but we are just about staying in touch with Fernando Alonso, and obviously the AI are very used to the conditions at the start of the Grand Prix, but we are getting more and more comfortable at this moment in time with the wet weather. We do run a little bit wider there than we'd like to, but we're just starting to get to grips with the conditions, and sticking on the back of Fernando Alonso is not a bad thing at all. So we've got Russell still leading away. It's pretty much as you were. Carlos Sainz is trying to chase down Lewis Hamilton in the Ferrari. Verstappen in P6, not managing to make progress so far. Alonso in P7, we are in P8, but we are gaining through certain sectors, and this is one of the sectors where we seem a little bit quicker than Fernando Alonso. We can see on the left-hand side the gap down to just 0.4 of a second as we do take a nice line into there. And then this is the awkward one in these conditions, getting the car turned in. Not always the easiest, but as you can see, we do have a little bit of a snap there, and that allows Fernando Alonso to get away a little bit. But coming on to lap 6, we are staying in touch just, and what we are doing is burning the ERS down this long straight. That's allowing us to keep Piastri at bay. He's a little bit closer after that mistake, but Alonso also losing touch with Verstappen on lap 6. And coming on to lap 8, we are as close as we have been to Fernando Alonso. We're gaining all the way down the straight. We take a little look to the inside. Fernando Alonso goes defensive. He actually compromises his entry. We try to stick it around, but then Fernando Alonso cuts back across us. We were not getting past the Spaniard there. We tried to take a little bit of a wider line to get a decent exit, but Fernando Alonso just giving us a bit of a nudge, saying I'm not having a Manor Racing car getting past me just yet. So on lap 8, we're still in touch, but can't seem to make the move on him. But all the time, Piastri and Stroll still battling behind. A second gap between them, then there's a 3-second gap to Yuki Tsunoda. Zhou in P12, Gasly P13, Leclerc is in P17 in the Ferrari. And who's at the back? Who else? Ollie Caldwell. But on lap 8, we are getting murmurs that the rain is lightening up, and it may be time to go to Inters at some point in the near future. Who will box, who may not? It said keep to the wet tyres all the way through the Grand Prix, but at this moment on lap 8, we're just stopping in touch with Fernando. Lap 10, we are just coming on to lap 11, and we have decided to box. We're going to take the gamble. I don't believe anyone else has. We've just had the radio call suggesting that it may be time for the intermediate tyres. Let's see if anyone else comes in here as well. It just looks like it's us at this moment in time. But we're coming in. We're going to try and make hay while the sun shines on these intermediate tyres. Let's have a little look. We do look like we've got a problem on the front right as well, which is not ideal for us. We've got, not a good pit stop at all there, but Nico Hülkenberg is the other car that's jumped into the pits for the intermediate tyres. So at the moment on lap 11, 2 cars on Inters, us being one of them and Nico Hülkenberg. This is a big strategy gamble, but I reckon it's the right time to go onto these tyres, and straight away we are feeling quite comfortable on them. We can see our teammate Ollie Caldwell in front of us there, still on the wet compounder tyre, but lap 11, this is where it's either going to pay off. Sometimes you've got to roll the dice, and in a car in our position, as you can see, we're weaving to try and get the temperature into the tyres a little bit. In a car in our position, a team in our position, why not take the risk? And straight away we can feel the grip, and we are closing, although running a little bit wide there, we are closing on Ollie Caldwell by some distance. And to be fair, we're going to stick with this because we may be on him very, very shortly. Let's have a little look. As we go through this next sector, we have got the speed over our teammate now. We can see the grip on these intermediate tyres, and we're basically pushing Ollie through these turns, and this is actually hindering us a little bit as we have a little bit of a corner cut there. But look at the pace difference now. Ollie Caldwell in a straight line, braking, and he's not making it easy for us at all. We tried to get to the outside to see if we can make a move here, but Ollie defends it, and is defending it for his life, which is probably not the wisest thing to do, as we have a little bit of a tap there, but that is not the wisest thing to do for Ollie Caldwell, as we're still struggling to get past him. Meanwhile, One of the only other cars to pit is Checo Perez onto the Inters. Everybody else in front still staying on the wet tyres. And we're riding back on board with us now, coming onto lap 12, using the ERS, and now we are starting to see the pace of these intermediate tyres. This is going to be our first proper overtake, but we're past Ollie Caldwell, get to the braking zone. He does try and brake late and try and keep his nose in, but we've got the superior traction now. We feel like we're on the better tyre, and it's going to be time to start making some overtakes on lap 12. And coming towards the end of lap 12, we are starting to really catch cars in front at a rate of knots. Valtteri Bottas in the Alfa Romeo now is blocking our path. We can see Magnussen in front of us. Magnussen's coming into the pits. Bottas is staying out. We get the power down well, and straight away we are past Valtteri Bottas up into P17, and we can see Logan Sargent in front of us now. This is going to be another possible overtaking opportunity in a moment. As we get towards turn 1, we are catching all the time, and we can see the gaggle of cars in front. As we come round into this first chicane, we can see Leclerc, Albon, Ocon, and even Checo Perez. Checo Perez going around there. We look like we've got somebody with a problem here, and it is Zhou Guanyu, who is going to be retiring from this Grand Prix. We can see him there on the left-hand side. It's yellow flag, so we have to back out of it. We can't overtake under yellow flag, so we back out of it against Logan Sargent. But it's just a stay of execution for the American driver. As once again, we try and get the power down, and we just look like we've got the grip. We keep it nice and tight to the inside, and that is another overtake. Beautifully done by us, if I do say so myself. Up into P15, past the Williams. We've got a Ferrari of Charles Leclerc, and it took us all of a sector to catch up to the back of the Ferrari. Why these cars are not pitting is beyond me, and we are now attacking Charles Leclerc. We can see in front of us Gasly and Perez having a little bit of a battle, but we're going to switch to the TV camera, because not only have we got Charles Leclerc, we have got the Williams of Alexander Albon as well, and Alexander Albon actually blocks us off a little bit. There's a little bit of contact there between us, and we just got blocked off by Alexander Albon again, trying to get a better line on this exit, and we get the power down, and again you can see the traction we've got on these wet compound tyres now. Against these wet compound tyres, I must say, we are making moves. We dip a little tyre onto the grass. Albon defends well. We are having a little bit of rumpy-pumpy between the both of us there. Rumpy-pumpy? You don't hear that on F1 commentary very often. But now we are going to try and move around the outside, and we sort of drift it around the outside. Get on the power again, and that's Alexander Albon dispatched. And the next man in our sights is Esteban Ocon as we come towards the final sector on lap 14. And as every lap, as we come out of the stadium section, we are so much quicker than the cars in front of us. And now Esteban Ocon had no answer. We got past him before we even got onto the straight there. And we are burning away in this Manor Racing car at the moment. We are feeling so comfortable. And I've got to say at the moment, this is possibly the best I have ever driven on F1 23. Certainly in the rain. Looks like we've got a little battle going on behind us between Bottas and Hülkenberg. We'll just stick with this while we're having a breather. And we can see Valtteri Bottas and Hülkenberg going side by side. But Hülkenberg has got the intermediate tyres on, and he's all doing the same as what we're doing, just overtaking the cars on the wet compound. We've now got a gap of 2.8 seconds to Gasly in front, and Tsunoda, I don't believe, is too far in front of him either. Perez is making his way through the field. He's enjoying the intermediate tyres. Russell's still leading, but for how long? And just a couple of corners on, we are back, and now it's Pierre Gasly in our sights, and we've not made an overtake into the stadium section yet. Is this going to be the moment we're later on the brakes than Pierre Gasly? We do run a little bit wide, but we do manage to get the job done, and now we've got Yuki Tsunoda in front of us. Gasly actually comes back at us a little bit. It's another lovely camera angle on these helicopter cams. They're fantastic for the replays especially. And now we've got Yuki Tsunoda in front of us, and just like many other cars before him, he goes to the outside. We get the power down, use a bit of ERS, dart to the inside, and we are going to manage to hopefully get the job done. That AlphaTauri does seem to have some pace in a straight line, but when it comes to the braking zones, this is where we're at our peak here. As we get hard on the brakes into turn 1, we keep it nice and clean, give him the space. And Perez has just overtaken Verstappen as well. But now we have got Max Verstappen, the world champion, in our sights next. Remember, we could not get past Fernando Alonso in the first stint. Fernando Alonso is still in P5, but we were stuck behind the Aston Martin. We are now up to P10, and we have got 9 laps to go on these intermediate tyres. Anything is possible at this moment in time. And once again, coming on to the final straight on lap 16, it's now Max Verstappen, and we are head-to-head with a Red Bull in a Manor Racing car. We dropped back behind him to get the slipstream, Max Verstappen, because we couldn't do him in a pure drag race. We now dart to the outside. We're earlier on the brakes than Max Verstappen. Max Verstappen runs wide. We check back down the inside. Fernando Alonso managed to defend this earlier, but Max Verstappen is not going to defend it, and we get the job done. It's a beautiful overtake. We set him up for that, and now it's Lance Stroll next in our sights. My word, I think we've done more overtaking today than we've done in the series so far, and I've got to say, I'm all for it. I'm feeling at home in this Manor Racing car. The Aston Martin of Lance Stroll is up next. And coming on to lap 18, these highlights are coming thick and fast. In fact, I think I'm going to do a highlight reel of this after the race, but we are now past Lance Stroll into turn 1. Again, on the wet compounder tyre. Not a lot of other cars are pitting. I think they're just sticking with it at this moment in time. But what are their pit walls doing? Because they must be seeing that the car from Sheffield, the Manor Racing car, is cutting its way through the competition. And on lap 18, we have nearly caught up to Fernando Alonso. I think it'll possibly be a couple of laps as we see Checo Perez doing the same thing as us. He is now up to P5. Do not bet against Checo Perez winning this, and do not bet against the podium for Manor Racing, because again, we are now on the back of Oscar Piastri. Now, we've had some fantastic battles with Oscar Piastri. If you watched last week's episode in Texas, we had some fantastic battles with him, and we are pushing him through these high-speed corners here. Not as high-speed as they would usually be. Up to 5th gear now, and we try and get the power down again. I don't think we're going to manage to get this done into the stadium section. We just get out of the dirty air a little bit in the slipstream. Try and get a very good entrance into this stadium section. We can see Fernando Alonso up the road, but the fans must be loving this because Checo Perez, the home driver, is absolutely cutting through the field, and the underdog of the Manor Racing car is doing the exact same thing. And once again, as we come on towards lap 19, we have got the better traction out of the final corner, and we're making the same move. It's deja vu here as we go head-to-head with Oscar Piastri. He caused us a lot of problems in Texas, but this is magic in Mexico from Manor. And now, although Piastri's got a bit more straight line speed, by the time we get to the corner, we've got the inside line. Piastri backs out of it. Next up is Fernando Alonso, and Fernando Alonso kept us behind for the first 9 or 10 laps. I can't see him keeping us behind on lap 19. And we're back on board again at the end of lap 19. We are once again up the back of the car, coming out of the final corner. And Fernando Alonso, you can see we are comfortable going to the inside line and straight away burning past Fernando Alonso. We are now nearly 4 seconds back. It's a straight drag race, but we've seen so many times we have got the better tyre on at this moment in time. And as we come into turn 1, inside line for us. Fernando Alonso sideswiped us earlier. He's not going to manage to get that same thing done now because we are up into P6. And next up is the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz. Meanwhile, Checo Perez is making his way through. He's now past Lando Norris into P10, and just 1.8 seconds is the gap to the race leader, George Russell. We are fancying a podium here, and in this sort of form, who could bet against it? Lap 20, Sainz up next. And once again, we are back. Carlos Sainz this time. Look how close we are to this Ferrari. Coming onto this straight, we've actually had to lift off. The Ferrari is slowing down the Manor Racing car. That's something you didn't expect to be said this season. And not only that, we can see Lewis Hamilton in front of us. Could we get P4 here by the end of this sector? We've got Carlos Sainz. We keep it nice and steady to the inside. Go over the curb a little bit. Use that. And then we've got Lewis Hamilton. We're right on the back of the Mercedes driver. He'll not be happy that he's still on the wet compounder tyre, but we are past Lewis Hamilton. And next up is Lando Norris in the McLaren. This is now for a podium for Manor Racing. Take a deep breath, ladies and gentlemen, because these next 4 or 5 laps are going to be mega. As we come to the end of lap 21, we're right on the back of Lando Norris. And not only that, we can see George Russell, who's had enough. He cannot defend any longer on those wet compound tyres. He's into the pits. And ladies and gentlemen, as we come on to lap 22, Manor Racing are in P2 in Mexico. Lando Norris is making a fist of this as we ride on board from Lando Norris's point of view. He tries to chuck one down the inside on the wet compounder tyre. Let's have a little look how this all plays out. He's skidding, he's drifting. He hasn't got the traction we've got on the Inters. Lando Norris down to P3. We're into P2. And could this be a podium for Manor Racing? All it is now is keeping this steady, and we could possibly, well, could we win it? I don't think we're going to win it. Checo Perez on the Inters. He looks like his job's done today in front of his home crowd. They'll be loving this. It won't be dampening the spirit of the Mexican fans, the rain here. But we're in P2 and we've already pulled out a second and a half on Lando Norris. And it's just expanding and extending the gap by the moment. But let's have a rundown of the top 10 because Norris is in P3, Sainz in P4, Fernando's in P5, Piastri P6, Stroll P7, Verstappen P8, Hülkenberg P9 and Russell P10. Nico Hülkenberg on the intermediate tyres could yet score very, very good points for Haas today. Meanwhile, the Alpines, who we're fighting in the Constructors, both on the soft compounder tyre. I believe Magnussen's on the Inters as well. This could be massive for Haas. Let's have a little look at the back. We've got Charles Leclerc still on the wet compounder tyre. Logan Sargent, Ollie Caldwell. Why have you not come in for Inters? Lap 22, P2 for Manor. And coming on to lap 24, we are seeing a few cars pit. Piastri has had enough. Lando Norris has had enough. He's into the pits. Nico Hülkenberg is now up into P6. On the intermediate tyres, he's got Stroll and Russell battling away in front of him. It's late on the brakes from the Mercedes driver, but what a battle this is at this moment in time. Nico Hülkenberg is at the moment possibly fighting for a podium. Look how close he is to the Aston Martin. He tries to get the power down. Will he manage to get this move done? Look at the closing speed he's got there. Round the outside goes Nico Hülkenberg in the wet against an Aston Martin, and Nico Hülkenberg is past an Aston Martin. He can see George Russell up the road. Will he be able to catch him? I doubt it, because now George Russell is on the intermediates. There is only Fernando Alonso with 2 laps left to go, still on the wet compounder tyre at the front. Will he manage to defend from the Mercedes? Lap 24. And the answer is no. Fernando Alonso has come into the pits. The tyres are dead. George Russell is into P3. Nico Hülkenberg is in P4. Unbelievable for the Haas. But let's just take a few moments because now we're going to see a fantastic end to the Mexican Grand Prix. We've had all the drama. We've had all the overtakes. But let's watch Checo Perez as he comes round on this final lap. What a performance from Checo. Verstappen will be fuming in the pit, on driving round at this moment in time because Max Verstappen didn't go to Inters. Checo Perez did, and as he comes through the stadium section to his adoring home fans, we can hear the fireworks going up because Checo Perez is going to win the Mexican Grand Prix as he comes round this final corner. Fantastic for Checo Perez. He wins in his home country. But let's have a look at us because we are coming round the stadium section, and after countless overtakes, a strategy gamble, it's magic for Manor in Mexico, and we are going to get a podium. Yes, a podium for Manor Racing. What a performance that is. And ladies and gentlemen, let's get to the podium scenes because I tell you something, we didn't expect this. What a couple of weeks it's been for this Manor Racing team.
Makes this event a brutal one for these Formula One cars, but this team have done a fantastic job to make it to the checkered flag and take a well-earned victory today.
It's unbelievable to think we're going to be on this podium.
Incredible result today.
Well, keeping their tyre temperatures up in the tricky wet conditions was really important. There's not much grip out there at the best of times, and it's 10 times worse if you're out there on cold tyres. So the way they kept the rubber in its proper operating window was a huge advantage today.
Red Bull put up an outstanding fight for the front position today, and it's great to see it paid off for them. They do so much for the sports that you can't help but be delighted by today's race.
Okay, Checo Perez, fair enough, you've won your home Grand Prix. What an achievement that is for Checo Perez. But my God, ladies and gentlemen, that was the drive of my life, and it was the drive of Manor Racing's resurgence, because that was superb. We got the intermediates right, we got the call right, and we were driving past cars, some fantastic overtaking. We see it there, all the adoring fans. Yes, they're adoring Checo Perez, but my God, that tastes better than a pint of Carling. The champagne is going to be flowing in the Manor garage tonight. Let's get to the full classification. So there we have it, Checo Perez winning. We finished second, George Russell third, Nico Hülkenberg scoring fantastic points for the Hassers in fourth. Started P15 on the grid. Us and Nico went onto the Inters early, and my God, did it pay dividends. Carlos Sainz P5, Norris P6, Nick De Vries in P7. Bloody Nick De Vries. Oscar Piastri in P8. Fernando Alonso P9. We couldn't get past Fernando at all at the start. Kevin Magnussen P10. Magnussen doesn't score any points. Verstappen doesn't score any points. Leclerc doesn't score any points. Neither does Hamilton. Ollie Caldwell doesn't either. He made a pit stop at the end. I don't know what to say about Ollie Caldwell, but let's have a look what it does for the standings, because this could be huge. It puts us up into P9 in the constructor standings. Checo Perez narrows the gap on his teammate to just 8 points and overtakes Lewis Hamilton in the midst of all that as well. We go up to P9 as we've said, but constructors wise, my days, Red Bull are 55 points clear of Mercedes, Ferrari are in P3, but look at Manor Racing overtaking the Alpines into P6, and we are now on 36 points. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the best race of my F1 career, for career standard. Love that race. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Ta-ra.